Hello again, we are live with Marc from Dropbox. In this session, Marc will present the vision that Dropbox has regarding the way of the future of work. And I must say that I followed the material from Dropbox and I find it completely fascinating, and I'm looking forward not only on their success on implementing the virtual first toolkit, but also in probably what will come to be a mass adoption, even though maybe a bit flavored of this great model. So the floor is yours, Marc. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Danielle. So how are we, all of us, going to work in 2021 and the following years? What will change for all of us when it comes to working from home, working remotely, or working into an office? Well, I think a lot of people are thinking about that right now. And of course, we at Dropbox, we also did. If you were in the panel a little bit earlier today, you will already know that I am working from home since March 6th, which is a date that I'll probably always remember because it's super important for me. It was the first day of starting basically a new way of working. So during the lockdown, when all of this started, a lot of us were thinking, well, this is obviously done in a couple of weeks, but it actually isn't. And as we all see, we're still working in a very, very different environment. I'm personally in Hamburg in Germany, which means our second lockdown just started today. So as you can see, we will stay at home for quite a little bit. So because at Dropbox, we were always kind of looking at creativity and collaboration as keys to our business. And actually, we also designed our office spaces exactly for that. The day when we had to go to our home office wasn't that hard, though, because all of us were enabled, at least from a technical perspective, to work from home. So all of us are having laptops. Most of us are having quite a good space where we can work from. So all of it was not that challenging for the first couple of weeks. When we found out that all of this will take longer, we already started a study with the Economist Intelligence Unit, where we looked at how are knowledge workers working from home? Are they like, is it the same for them working from home as if they would work from an office, or what are the differences? And what we found out in the survey that we did is that, yeah, they are absolutely as productive working from home than they were from the office. And looking at that from an internal Dropbox perspective, also nobody really wanted to get back to a rigid 5-day in the office work week. So as a company, we looked at what are kind of the things that we need to focus on for the next years to come. And one thing that is super important for us is that we still keep the focus. And this is a sentence from Gloria Marc, who said, every time a person switches tasks, they make a cognitive shift which depletes their mental resources. So those task switching that we're doing a lot over and over again every day, especially in an office environment, this is where we can do better and where we can focus better. But before I actually start, let me dig a little bit deeper into what we are talking about as Dropbox when we're talking about virtual first, and what virtual first actually means for us. So virtual first is the strategy that we define that we will live moving forward whenever we come out of our mandatory home offices. So mandatory home office for us started, as I said, in March and will go on until June next year. And after that, we'll go virtual first. So virtual first for us means the following. Whenever we are doing individual work, like the stuff that I'm doing right now, when I'm writing on a concept, when I'm creating things on my own, when I'm just doing my standard work, this work in the future will be done from either at home or from a place of our choice. And I'll get to place of our choice just in a second. Whenever we do collaborative work, we will not do this from a standard office because there will be no standard offices anymore going forward for Dropbox. What we will have, though, is something that we call Dropbox Spaces. And a Dropbox space is actually a place where we can meet to collaborate and only to collaborate. So it's a collaborative area in the places where we already have offices today, like San Francisco or Dublin, where we will have dedicated Dropbox spaces where we can collaborate on different topics. It's like whenever you have a team meeting, when you have a strategy meeting, when you have a project meeting, all of those things where you work in a collaborative environment, you can actually do those meetings from within our Dropbox spaces. The interesting thing here is that in a space, there will be no individual workplaces. So there are no desks in there, for example. So they are not the places where you can go to do individual work, because we really mean that there will be no more office space. We will be working from home, and now I come to a better definition of working from wherever we want to work from. So because we know and we've experienced that during the lockdown, during this year, actually, that not everyone can actually work from home and is happy to work from home as well. And there can be many reasons for that. Like you have small children that you need to, that somebody needs to take care of. Maybe you are very young, it's your first job, and you're working from a very, very small apartment where all your flatmates are also working from home and where it's really super tough. So we, of course, know that an office would come in handy. So we decided to dedicate a budget for every single Dropbox employee to be able to go into a co-working location, just as an example. So yes, you can work from home, but you can also go into a co-working location. Let me get into a couple of more details around virtual first. So the first thing is our location strategy. This is something that has really, really changed for us when it comes to virtual first and where we can work. So the location strategy is actually what we mean with the Dropbox Studios. And there might be some exceptions based on team and role, but in general, people will be able to relocate as well, very easy. So this location strategy is not only about having a new space, a Dropbox space where you can meet collaboratively. It's also about from where do you want to work today? What we've seen is that a lot of people are already, since the lockdown started, already moved out of the very high expensive areas like San Francisco or Dublin out to other locations where maybe it's not directly in a city center, but where the quality of living is way higher. And we will support that in the future, not only in the US, but also for Europe. So just as an example, if you want to work from, let's say, London, and you're now living in Hamburg in Germany, you can totally do that. And we will support you with relocating there. In addition to that, you are able to work from any other location that you want to for 3 months per year. So we will add a lot of flexibility around where you work from in terms of geographical location, but also working from home versus working from a co-working space. The second topic I'd quickly like to touch is how we are approaching our work days in the future. Again, one other thing that we've seen is the way we are structuring our working days needs a refresh. We really need to look at how we will be working in the future, how our work days will be structured in the future. And the way we see it, and for me, that was in the beginning, it was kind of a strange term. We will be setting core collaboration hours. And those core collaboration hours will be the times of the day where we are mainly working synchronously versus other times of the day where we might be working asynchronously. So what this actually means is, and I'm just in the process of doing that because we will start with that in January already, we will completely redefine our working days during the mornings, and everybody has the flexibility to define their mornings. During the mornings, we will be available for one-on-one meetings, for team meetings, for Zoom calls. We will look at Slack like pretty much immediately and send out messages from there. In the afternoons, though, we will make ourselves time for focus time, for a block of time that we reserve to really concentrate and focus on work that actually takes more than 30 minutes to focus on. And I can tell you from a couple of my own experiences, and I guess a lot of you have experienced the same thing in the last couple of months. If you look at how your workday is structured today, because you are not able to just walk over to another person and to just ask things whenever you want to talk to someone, you have to create a meeting. And those meetings, they actually add up. And in the end of the day, you will have the full day with 30-minute slots where you are talking to people, where you are in standard meetings like the one-on-ones, team meetings, project meetings, planning meetings, whatever it is. Plus, in addition to that, you will also have those single meetings where you're just talking about one question that you have. We will change that. And I already restructured my days according to this starting in January. So from January, all of my meetings that I have, like one-on-ones, regular meetings, will be in the mornings, and I blocked the afternoons already. Does that mean we will work less? Oh, no. And it doesn't mean that we're going to move to a 4-hour workday. What it only means is we'll take the time that we need to really work on high impact projects, to really work on the projects that take time. If you want to create a strategy, you can't do that in 30 minutes. And you can't do that while you're having breaks in between with Zoom calls, with Slack messages, or with emails. You need uninterrupted time. And this is what we're going to achieve with that. The third topic I'd like to touch on, and this was also super important when we thought about virtual first and how this is going to be, the employee experience. So if you look at the different models that are possible for how we're going to work next year, actually there are not too many. So first option is we're going to get back to the old way of working. So everybody is working from the office every day. I don't think that a lot of companies will do that. Second option is we go 100% virtual, and there are today already a lot of companies, especially younger startups, that are working 100% remotely, where there are no offices at all, where you only meet probably once a year for an all hands. Third option is go hybrid. So just tell everyone, well, if you want to work from home, you can do so. If you want to come to the office, we'll keep the offices. You can just do so as well. We looked at all of those options, and none of them were a good fit for us. And the reason why they weren't a good fit is because of the employee experience. If you have a hybrid approach, for example, the people that are coming into the office will have a totally different experience than people staying at home. They will not have the same access to other people. They will not have the same access to perks that may be in an office. We wanted to make sure that we treat every employee the same and that every employee has the same experience. We also thought about this from an HR perspective. So just imagine you have a mixed environment, a hybrid environment, and there will be a promotion. Guess who will be promoted? The person that is always in the office or the person that is only working from home? And again, this is also something that we learned, that people are totally different. To be honest, I'm one of those people that loves to be in the office. So I really, really miss my colleagues, but it's okay for me because I have this view of, in June, we're getting Dropbox Spaces and then we can finally meet again. And we will meet more often. There will be a dedicated budget for team meetings once a quarter, for example, for every team, in addition to all the other meetings that we can do in those Dropbox Spaces. On the other hand, I've also seen people or talked to people that said, Marc, actually, I'm an introvert. I'm not into people that much. So actually, I'm pretty happy that I can work from home now. And those people have a voice now. Finally, they do have a voice. While the extroverts like myself have this very loud and bright voice, sometimes the introvert people are not raising their voice loud enough. They will be able to do that moving forward, especially in a virtual first environment. Now, all of what I just shared with you, our whole strategy, we actually put that open source. So if you just search for, and I'm going to paste the link right now into the chat. If you want to know more about the virtual first strategy, you can just go to our Dropbox blog, where we published a whole virtual first toolkit. So all of the details, all of our thoughts are open sourced for others also to be able to use them. This is actually super important for us because we think that this might not only be a really good way for Dropbox, but also for other companies. One thing to note, though, is we are very sure that we haven't got everything right from the start. There will be things that we will need to figure out during the process. And actually, we need to look at other companies, and we're dependent on other companies to also give us feedback on that. And this is what I also hope to get out of this event right here a little bit later when we're talking about your questions. But just a couple of more things from the Virtual First Toolkit to give you a glimpse of the level of detail that we're seeing there. One thing, for example, is when we're looking at Virtual First, it's not only ways of working, it's really on restructuring things and rethinking different topics of our work area. One thing, for example, that we need to change is how we're going to focus. If you think about it, there are still a lot of companies that are looking for people being physically in a space. And I experienced that myself. I was in companies that looked for people, just how many hours are you actually spending at your job? I even one time got this interesting question, or not a question, but more an answer from one of my leads who said, and this was not a Dropbox, by the way, it's important, who said, Marc, nobody sees when you get to work in the morning, but everybody sees when you leave in the evening. But actually, I personally also think that work is not measured in the amount of hours that it takes. It's also not measured on the busyness that you have. So how much stuff did you do? I think we all need to try to measure the impact that our work has. To give you an example, it will not be about the number of projects completed, but more about we increase the adoption of an amount of features by 20%, for example. So really look at the impact and not on the busyness. Second thing here is thinking about going non-linear. And this is the idea of asynchronous versus synchronous work. To add just a couple of points to this is like those synchronous real-time meeting-based communication. While it is the norm, it can really lead to a lot of wasteful meetings. Every one of us was in a meeting that he didn't want to be in, actually, because it was just not important. It wasn't intended to be as a real meeting with an output. We will really provide a chance to develop better habits for those. So one important thing that we're going to do is replacing those quick syncs that I talked about to really thinking about asynchronous by default. Asynchronous by default means, again, an example, before I call in a meeting with a person where I only have a question, I have to go to Slack and ask this person to really get context. And only if I can't get that context out of this asynchronous information, I will set up a meeting for this. Asynchronous by default also means that before we call in a meeting, we need to prepare the meetings accordingly. So it really means that there will be no more meetings without an agenda, without a document that actually describes what this meeting is about. And that really then helps you to facilitate and host the meeting. It definitely does make a ton of sense to think before you schedule. Those are just a couple of points. Those are the things where I think that I just wanted to communicate to you and just give you a couple of insights into how we will be working starting June next year. I'm super excited. I'm really looking forward to the Dropbox studios, how they will look like. To be honest, I'm also a little bit excited about traveling again, which will probably, again, take some time. And what I would like to know now, and feel free to ask that in the chat, in the stage chat, actually. So what is your view on all of this? What are you thinking about this? And I'm happy to answer any questions that come in now, or just comment on whatever you think. So first question is in. Do you think that a business of the future will be consultancy to support the implementation of the Virtual First Toolkit? Will Dropbox look to build a line of service in this direction? This is a very good question. And of course, I can't comment on this. It would make sense from my personal opinion. And it would make sense to build a consultancy around the concept of virtual first in two different ways, not only for startups that just create their business, but also for established companies. Because I think that a lot of established companies are right now, they don't really know where to go and what to do. And we've seen announcements from a couple of companies that also show this in terms of, well, we allow our employees to work from wherever they want to. But the question is, how? How should they work from wherever? How are you supporting those employees? What are the HR processes around this? What are the IT processes around this? We heard this morning from Rick, who works for T-Mobile in the Netherlands, that they need to establish a totally different logistics chain because they need to deploy their IT equipment now individually to the home, to the place where people live instead of where they work, which is the same, but not the same, if you know what I mean. Thanks for this question, Daniel. Do we have any more questions around virtual first? Any more statements? Okay, now that's, again, Florian, thank you for the question. How does the concept fit in with stately regulations, work times, and asynchronous contributions? Very good questions. This is definitely something that we also thought about, of course. Not that much with regards to regulations. We know that there are many. We looked at it in a sense of really caring about our employees and really look at the fact that there's a very thin line now, especially also in this virtual first model, between work and life. It's actually a togetherness of this. But to specifically answer your question, Florian, the way we structure our working days gives us a lot more flexibility to this, which means that, just as an example, if I need to homeschool my kids in the afternoons, I can totally do this. I work in the morning, I do all of my synchronous work. For the asynchronous work, for the focus work, I can then take the hours that I need whenever I need them, whenever it makes sense for me to do that. If I'm a person that only needs, I don't know, 30 minutes for a lunch break, but then I like to do a 1-hour walk, I can totally do that because now I'm super flexible in time. The important thing here is I need to communicate this. I always need to communicate how I'm working to everyone else and make that visible in my calendar so everybody else can empathize with that and work around this. And I hope this answers your question. Any more questions? Any more statements with regards to virtual first? If not, well, one more. Is there any support for the employees since office space is saved? More money to rent a larger apartment or to pay for co-working space? Thanks for the question, Martina. Yes, there is. So we already had a budget for various things for the employees, which a lot of companies actually have, like for the mobile contract, for a wellness reimbursement, for sports, for a fitness studio, things like that. We will have a much higher budget for all of those benefits starting in 2021, and it will be big enough to also cover for the co-working spaces. So yes, Dropbox will pay for the co-working space for the individual person though. I think we would have time for one more question because we still have 2 minutes. As I don't see any more question. Thank you all so much for joining this session. If you have questions, you will of course find me on LinkedIn. You will also find me in the personal chat and can send me a direct message for the next couple of minutes as well. So feel free to reach out and have a great holiday season. Cheers. Bye-bye.